Shalom, shalom. I want to give honor and glory to Yahweh Hashem Shai. We're going to another lesson, Deuteronomy 23 chapter. The laws in Deuteronomy 23 chapter, right? It's the second count that was given to the Israelites because the first generation, they died in the wilderness, and the Lord had to force the laws the second time to Joshua and Caleb and the Israelites, and they were too young to bear witness to the law, and that is why it was enforced, and that is why it is called Deuteronomy, right? So let's go to some precepts. Okay, let's go to Deuteronomy 139. All right, Deuteronomy 139. Moreover, your little ones, which ye said should be a prey, and your children, which in that day had no knowledge between good and evil, they shall go in thither, and unto them will I give it, and they shall possess it. Meaning the Lord promised that land to the Israelites. And remember, to the first generation and the rebellious scoffers and non-believers, and they didn't enter into the promised land. And the Lord was speaking to the little children and told them that they were going to enter in the promised land. Right, let's go to Hebrews 3 and 12. Okay, let's go to Hebrews 3 and 12. Hebrews 3 and 12. Hebrews 3 and 12. Take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief and departing from the living God. Verse 13. But exhort one another daily while it is called it today, lest any of you be hardened through the deceitfulness of sin. Hardened meaning someone could be having sin built up on them, and that is why it is important to exhort your brethren and call him and check up on him to see what he is going through, and he might have so many different demons on them, and that is why you have to check on them, and that is why it is important to check on one another by calling, testing, or go see if the brother is doing okay, and making sure to ask him if he is going through anything in his life, right? So let's go to Galatians 6 and 1. All right, okay, what if a demon taking hold of your brother? Okay, right. Let's go to Galatians 6 and 1. This is Galatians 6 and 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritually restored such an one in the spirit of meekness, consider thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Meaning, if you start to see your brother slip back into the world, or having all them demons on them, and you have to be there and lift a brother up spiritually, because we are our brother's keepers. And when you see them going through something, and you have to rebuke them because you don't want to be partakers of his sins and be judged for it, so you have to say something to them. And it doesn't matter if he eating pork or etc. Okay, what fault that he is in, and we have to be patient with our brother and sisters, right? Let's go back to Hebrews 3 and 14. Hebrews 3 and 14. For we are made partakers of Yahushua if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. Verse 15. While it is said today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation. Like provocation meaning to provoke and ignore, angry someone, and the children of Israel angered the Most High when they were in the wilderness, saying, we could have stayed in Egypt, and complaining, saying, my feet hurt and my back hurt, or saying, we should have taken another route. And they did nothing but provoke the Lord. Harden not your heart, as in the provocation. Okay, verse 16. For some, when they had heard, did provoke, how about not all that came out of Egypt by Moses? Right, and the two men that didn't provoke was Joshua and Caleb, and Joshua is from the tribe of Ephraim, and Caleb is from the tribe of Judah, and these are the only two men that saw the plague of Egypt, and the departed of the Red Sea, and the only two men to survive 40 years in the wilderness. And when they all left Egypt, all of them died besides these two, Joshua and Caleb, and everyone else didn't believe. And out of millions of people didn't believe in the Lord to see the kingdom at the time, the promised land, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 34:7, okay? All right. Deuteronomy 34:7. And Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eye was not dim, nor his natural force abated. Meaning when Moses died, his eyesight was good and his strength was good as well. And he was 120 years old and had good strength like a young man. Verse 8. And the children of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. So the days weeping and mourning for Moses were ended. Verse 9. And Joshua the son of Nun was full of the spirit of wisdom, for Moses had laid his hands upon him, and the children of Israel hearkened it unto him, and did as the Lord commanded Moses. So Joshua was the next one to listen to for the children of Israel, and Moses had laid his hand upon him, meaning the transfer of the spiritual power to one individual to another, right? Let's go to 2 Timothy 1:6. Go to 2 Timothy 1:6, okay? 2 Timothy 1:6. Wherefore I put thee in remembrance that thou stir up the gift of Yahweh, which is in thee by the putting on of my hand. So there was a gift that was given to Timothy, but it was only given to him by Paul laying his hand on him. And he had it, but it was given by Yahweh, by Shem Yahushua, through Paul. And that thou stir up the gift and wake up the power of the gift that's in you. And you have to pray and ask the Most High, what is your stir up the gift? If it's teaching, reading, holding signs, passing out flyers, etc., and ask the Most High, what is my gift? And the spirit that was on Moses, and he put his hands on Joshua, and now the spirit is on Joshua. And the same way Paul put his hands on Timothy to give him the spiritual power, right? Go to Hebrew, back to Hebrew. Let's go 3:17. Okay, Hebrew 3:17. But with whom was he grieved it 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcass fell in the wilderness? Verse 18. It's Hebrews 3:18. And to whom swear he that they should not enter into his rest, but to them that believed it not. Verse 19. So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief. Meaning, and that is why Deuteronomy is here, because it was millions of people that died because of unbelief. And they saw all the miracles, water gushing out of the rocks, and the Most High opened the Red Sea, etc. And you still don't believe in the Most High, and that is why the Most High put them to death. And it tells you that, right, in the Numbers 16:30 on down chapter, right? Let's go to Numbers 16 and 30, all right? Numbers 16 and 30. Number 16:30. But if the Lord make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth and swallow them up, and swallow them up with all that apparenting unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, and then ye shall understand that these men have provoked have provoking the Lord, meaning they didn't believe after the Most High did all the miracles in front of them, right? So let's get down to it. Let's start with Deuteronomy 23:1, okay? All right. Right, the law, and everyone couldn't enter into the congregation. Let's go to Deuteronomy 23:1. All right. He that is wounded in the stones or had his privily members cut off shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Meaning, having your rod cut off and you don't have a penis, you couldn't come to the congregation. And you are wounded in the stones, meaning your testicles are damaged, or you got a vasectomy, slunky, and the Lord didn't play that, and you couldn't come in the congregation, and you had to stay on the outside and be a social outcast. But now, if you try to turn yourself into a woman, and you can repent for that, and the Most High will have mercy on you, and you can get your tubes tied, or a vasectomy, and intentionally, and in the ancient world you will get put to death. But now you can repent for that. And also, a woman can't grab a man by the stones, meaning testicles, and if so, she will get her hand chopped it off, and it is the law, and the Most High isn't playing around. And also, you had men were born like that without their genital parts, and without their genital parts, right? Okay, let's go to Isaiah 56:3. That's Isaiah 56:3. Okay. Isaiah 56:3. Neither let the son of the stranger that had joined himself to the Lord speak, saying, the Lord had utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuchs say, behold, I am a dry tree. Meaning the eunuchs was a social outcast, and you had men that was captured by other men, and because eunuchs during the translated slave trade, and the Arabs would castrate your penis and testicles, and they did that to make sure you couldn't defile their women or their concubines, and that is what the other nations were doing to us, right? Verse 4. For those said the Lord unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and chose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant. Verse 5. Even unto them will I give in my house, and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Meaning, and if you are a eunuch and you can still make it to the kingdom of heaven. Right, let's go to Acts 2. Let's go to Acts 2:26. Okay, all right. This is Acts 2:26. And the angel of the Lord spake unto Philip, saying, arise and go towards the south unto the way that goeth down from Jerusalem unto Gaza, which is desert. Verse 27. And he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, an eunuch of great authority under Candace, queen of the Ethiopians, who had the charge of all her treasure, and had come to Jerusalem to worship. 28. Was returning and sitting in his chariot. Now reading Isaiah, meaning Isaiah, it's like the prophet, meaning this man was a eunuch from Ethiopia, but he was an Israelite. And why did he come to Jerusalem 3 times a year to worship at the Pentecost, a feast of unleavened bread, and the feast of tabernacle? And it is a commandment to go to Jerusalem 3 times a year. And this what this man was doing, even though he was a eunuch. Let's go to Matthew 19:3. Let's go to Matthew 19:3. Matthew 19:3. The Pharisee also came unto him, tempting him, and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Verse 4. And he answered it and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? Verse 5. and said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Verse 6, wherefore they are no more twine, but one flesh. What therefore Yahweh had joined together, let not man put asunder. Verse 7, they say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? Verse 8, he said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffer you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. Verse 9, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another committed adultery, and whoso marry her which is put away do commit adultery. Meaning, and no one can marry another man's wife if the man is still alive, and especially from fornication. Verse 10, his disciples say, read again. His disciples say unto him, if the case of the man be so with his wife, it is not good to marry. Meaning, the disciples were saying, if I can't put away my wife for anything, then I'm not going to get married. Verse 11, but he said unto them, all men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. Verse 12, for there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Right. So, meaning some men were born this way from their mother's womb, and then you had men that was made eunuchs from other men that castrated them, and they made themselves eunuchs, for they won't have any distraction to make it to the kingdom of heaven. Right? Let's go to 2 Kings 9 and 32, okay? So let's stay on this. 2 Kings 9:32, and he lifted up his face to the window and said, who is on my side? Who? And there looked it out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs, meaning they couldn't enter into the congregation. Okay, right. 2 Kings 9:33. And he said, throw her down. So they threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled it on the wall and on the horses, and he trotted her under feet. Meaning that is the death of Jezebel, and them were eunuchs, and there were made eunuchs of men, and after the servants of multitude of the children of Israel at the time. And there are no accounts of what nationality these eunuchs was, up under the authority of Ahab and Jezebel. All right, let's go to Matthew 9 and 12. Matthew 9 and 12. All right, Matthew 9 and 12. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Meaning, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. Meaning that's you intentionally made this decision for the kingdom of heaven's sake. I don't want any distraction, and I want to focus on the Most High only, and I don't want to deal with no woman, but just focus on the Most High and become a eunuch and have your penis and testicle removed it. And all men can go through this and have this done, and only a few certain men that was in a high spirit that could go through this procedure. And Yahushua, Paul, Elijah could have had any woman they wanted, and even Daniel. And that is why the Lord said, he that is able to receive it, let him receive it. And they did the work instead of having a woman. And Paul telling you in 1 Corinthians 7:1 on down, it is good for a man not to touch a woman and focus on the word. And that don't mean that is off to have a wife either. And Paul's recommendation was to the younger men to focus on the work. And also these are the accounts that's different men that might have had their private parts cut off or wounded in the stone. Right. Let's go to Acts 17 and 30. It's Acts 17 and 30. And the times of this ignorance Yahweh winked it at, but now commanded all men everywhere to repent. Verse 31, because he had appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness by that man whom he had ordained it, whereof he had given assurance unto all men, and that he had raised it him from the dead. Meaning the Lord winked it at that sin, meaning now it is a commandment to you to have to repent and repent from fornication, adultery, and you turn away from that sin when you receive this knowledge, right? Let's go back to Deuteronomy 23 and verse 2. Deuteronomy 23 and 2. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Meaning a bastard child is a born illegitimate of adultery or a child of fornication, and these are the children that was social of outcasts to enter into the congregation, and even to his 10th generation, meaning forever. Let's go to Judges 11 and 1. All right, let's talk about Jephthah. Judges 11:1. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of an harlot, and Gilead begat Jephthah. Verse 2. And Gilead's wife bare him sons, and his wife's sons grew up, and they thrust out Jephthah, and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Meaning they said, you can inherit my father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Meaning it doesn't mean a heathen woman, but she were a harlot, and that would make you strange. And what the Lord said about harlots and whores, and it should not be any harlots of the daughters of Israel. And if you marry a whore and have a child by a whore, and like Hosea did, and that child would be more like an outcast, and they would receive less privilege, and they would be looking down on. And that is why his brother said, you can't have inheritance among us, because you are a son of a whore, and we are actually sons of a Israelite marriage and righteous, and you are a son of a whore. That's thrust about, and he wasn't allowed in the congregation because the son knew the law. And also the Gileadites are the children of Manasseh, and they are Gileadites because they lived in the land of Gilead. And if we see a word in the Bible, look it up and don't read over it, because you don't know what it means, and find out what it means. And the Lord said, don't be ignorant to something small or great. Let's go to Sirach 41 and 5. Sirach 41 and 5, okay? The children of sinners are abominable children, and they that are conversant in the dwelling of the ungodly. Verse 6. The inheritance of sinners' children shall perish, and their posterity shall have a perpetual reproach. Verse 7. The children will complain of an ungodly father because they shall reproach for his sake. Meaning like his son, he was complaining and he was mad that he got thrust out. And if your father was a whoremonger, adulterer, and his bad name was put out there on the streets, and everyone will be talking about it. So the children were complaining about their father because they had a perpetual reproach what their father did. Right? Verse 8. Woe be unto you, ungodly men, which have forsaken the law of the Most High God. For if ye increase, it shall be to your destruction. Verse 9. And if ye be born, ye shall be born to a curse. And if ye die, a curse shall be your portion. Meaning, so the Lord wasn't playing around with these bastards. They were born to curse, and you might saw them on them feast days and give them that look and might say, get that man out of here. And you might show up to give everyone love, but they might not want your love and might not want you to do the peace offering. And they might say, are you the son of Manasseh from Gilead? Right. So let's go to Sirach 23:19. Sirach 23:19. Okay. Such a man only feared the eyes of men, and noted not that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun, beholding all the ways of men, and considering the most secret parts. Meaning, and that is a man that think he can get away with adultery because it is nighttime. Verse 20. He knew all things ever they were created, so also after they were perfected, he looked it upon them all. Verse 21. This man shall be punished in the streets of the city, and where he suspected not, he shall be taken. Meaning, and he might be in the bed, and they snatch him out of the bed of an act of adultery, and he might not have any clothes on, and they at least expected they are going to find out. Right, that's verse 22. Thou shalt it go also with the wife that leaveth her husband, and bring it in a hair by another. Meaning, and the penalty of adultery is death. So you have a lot of women bringing a child by another man, but she didn't get caught having adultery, so she didn't get put to death because she had the child, but it's by act of adultery. Right, 23. For first, she had disobeyed the law of the Most High, and secondly, she had trespassed against her own husband, and thirdly, she had played the whore in adultery and brought children by another man. Meaning, and it's a law of jealousy in Numbers 5 and 12 chapter, and also they didn't have a paternity test back then, and this how they determined back then, and the Lord had certain spirits created in heaven and had them to come down on these men to make them feel suspect about the hidden things in darkness, and there is no getting away with anything, and that is why the Lord had a spirit of jealousy for a reason. Right, let's go to Numbers 5 and 12, okay? Let's talk about the spirit of jealousy. All right. It's number 5 and 12. Number 5 and 12. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, if any man wife go aside and commit a trespassing against him. Verse 13. Verse 13. And a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close, and she be defiled, and there be no witnesses against her, neither she be taken with the manner. Meaning, because it wasn't any witness, and everyone had an adultery, didn't get caught back then, and that's why it's called adulteress. And you had women that was sneaky, and you had men that was sneaky and wicked as well. And the women probably came home, and just like the Lord said in Proverbs 30 and 20 chapter, such is the way of adulterous woman. She eateth and wiped her mouth and said, I have done no wickedness. Right? Let's go. Number 5 and 14. And the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled. Verse 15. Then shall the man bring his wife unto the priest, and he shall bring her offering for her, the tenth part of an ephah of barley meal. He shall pour no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is an offering of jealousy, an offering of memorial, of bringing iniquity to remembrance. Meaning, and it's a spirit in heaven, and that is why in 1 Kings 22:19 chapter, I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the hosts of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. And on the left side is negative, envy, etc., evil spirit, and on the right side you have the good spirit to come down to make you humble, meek spiritually, and have wisdom. And it's a spirit in heaven that called the spirit of jealousy, that the Most High was sent to come on a brother, and he will start asking his wife questions, and she might have thoughts that she had a master plan, and everything was planned out, and he was at work, and she thinking no way she can get caught, and the Most High telling the spirit of jealousy to go hop on that man and bring it to the light. And for it is an offering of jealousy, an offering of memorial, bringing iniquity to remembrance, meaning bringing sin to a remembrance, and it is no escaping the Lord. And the Lord has spirits to call you to remembrance things, and that is either wicked things or righteous things. Verse 16. And the priest shall bring her near and set her before the Lord. Verse 17. And the priest shall take holy water in an earthy vessel, and of the dust that is in the floor, that is in the floor of the tabernacle, the priest shall take and put it into the waters. Verse 18. And the priest. Verse 18. And the priest shall set the woman before the Lord, and uncover the woman's head, and put the offering of memorial in her hands, which is the jealousy offering. And the priest shall have in his hand the bitter water that causes the curse. So meaning the priest uncover her head, and it is showing us that a woman wearing a hair wrap going to the temple or praying into the places that the congregation was at, and it was always the law, and Paul didn't make up the law, and it was always a custom to Israel. Verse 19. And the priest shall charge her by an oath, and say unto the woman, if no man have lain with thee, and if thou hast not gone aside to uncleanness with another instead of thy husband, be thou free from this bitter water that causes the curse. Meaning this could be a intense situation, and the woman probably have committed adultery and telling her husband that she don't want to go, and her husband telling her that she has to go to the priest, and she is making excuses and not to go, and her heart is pounding because she is scared, and he see why she is nervous and afraid. And when she say, I don't want to drink that holy water, then you know she committed adultery. And this is what the Lord give them to drink, that will give them a physical effect that the high priest would make. And no, we can make this at home, and this is not for us to be doing to find out if our wife are having an adultery, and that is going off. Right, verse 20. But if thou hast gone aside to another instead of thy husband, and if thou be defiled, and some man have lain with thee besides thy husband, verse 21, then the priest shall charge the woman with an oath of cursing, and the priest shall say unto the woman, the Lord make thee a curse and an oath among thy people, when the Lord do make thy thighs to rot and thy belly to swell. Verse 22, and this water that caused the curse shall go into thy bowels to make thy belly to swell and thy thighs to rot. And the woman shall say, Amen, amen, meaning when it says to make thy belly to swell and thy thighs to rot, meaning that, and that is going into you may have a woman pregnant or a woman begotten pregnant, and this is how the Lord punish her. It caused her to have a miscarriage, to destroy that child in the womb for the sake of the husband, and that is why it's called the belly to swell and thy thigh to rot. Meaning the woman procreating power come from procreating in her vagina, and not her actual thighs to rot and belly to swell, and the thighs and rotten in Hebrew meaning to waste away a woman's seed to procreate a power, because she is pregnant by another man's seed, and this man isn't going to give his inheritance to a man to cause the land to fall to confusion. So the Lord is going to cause this woman to force a miscarriage, to drink the holy water, to make thy belly to swell and thy thighs to rot. And also you might bring the woman to the priest, and you might think that is your child, and it tells you in Sirach 23 and 23, right? Let's go to Sirach 23 and 23. Okay, Sirach 23 and 23. For first she had, let me read that again. For first she had disobeyed the law of the Most High, and secondly she had trespassed against her own husband, and thirdly she had played the whore in adultery and brought children by another man. Verse 24, she shall be brought out into the congregation, and inquisition shall be made of her children. Verse 25, her children shall not take root, and her branches shall bring forth no fruit. 26, she shall leave her memorial to be cursed, and her reproach shall not be blotted out, meaning she will have a bad name forever. Leave her memorial to be cursed, and inquisition shall be made of her children, meaning someone asks them who is their father, and they say, you must be the son of a adulteress, an outcast bastard, and the law says you can come to the congregation, and her children shall not take root, meaning they can't come in the congregation. And these are bastard children of forbidden marriage, of ancestor adultery, right? Verse 27, and they that remain shall know that there is nothing better than the fear of the Lord, and that there is nothing sweeter than to take heed unto the commandments of the Lord. Verse 28, it is great glory to follow the Lord, and to be received of him is long life, right? Let's go back to Deuteronomy 23 and 3. Deuteronomy 23 verse 3. An Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Ammonite means Japanese, Moabite means Chinese. Deuteronomy 23:4, because they met you not with bread and with the water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they heard against thee Balaam the son of Beor, Pethor, Mesopotamia, to curse thee. Meaning, and that is why the Ammonites and Moabites can't make it, and they hired a wizard to put a curse on you and spells and to destroy you, and that is why they can't come to the congregation. Let's go to Numbers 31 and 14. It's Numbers 31 and 14. And Moses was wroth with the officer of the host, with the captains over 1,000 and captains over 100, which came from the battle. Verse 15. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive? Meaning, and they went to war and captured the Midianite women and saved them, and they should have killed them all. Verse 16. Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Meaning, what they are saying is, through the counsel of Balaam is in the book of Numbers, chapter 22, 23, 24, 25 chapter. And when you read them accounts, and this international wizard put spells, curses on the children of Israel because he was hired, and one of his master plan was to cause Israel to sin because they knew they couldn't defeat us in battle. So he hired a heathen woman to seduce the men of Israel and fall away from their own women and the Most High and serve other gods. And that is one of the main counsel to make Jake fall off, and that is why it's against the law to have a heathen woman, because if we have one, it will make us fall away from our God and go serve them gods. And that is another reason the heathen woman can't come to our congregation. Right? Verse 17. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that had known man by lying with him. Verse 18. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourself. Verse 19. And do ye abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever have killed it, any person, and whosoever have touched it, any slain, purify both yourself and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Meaning, and they had to kill everyone besides the women that never had a husband before, and they kept the women for themselves. Let's go back to Deuteronomy 23 and verse 6. Deuteronomy 23 and 6. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity, all thy days forever. Meaning, no saving the heathen. Verse 7. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land. Now this is a controversy right here, topic about shall not abhor an Edomite, and so brothers are getting it wrong, and it will explain it to you in Ecclesiastes. All right, 3 and 1 chapter. All right, let's go to it. Ecclesiastes 3 and 1. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose up under the heaven. Now during this time, the children of Israel not to go destroy the Edomites and abhor them at the time in the wilderness, but when time progressed, the Edomites became the chief arch enemies of the Israelites. So the Lord eventually said, smite the Ammonites and destroy the Edomites. And David said, hate them that hate thee, and I hate them with a hatred. I count them my enemies. And also it tells you that we can abhor an Edomite in Psalms 137 and 9 chapter. All right, take and dashes thy little ones against the stone. Right, so let's go to 1 Samuel 15 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, our people like to run to that. Don't abhor no Edomite. Okay, you can't abhor an Edomite. Let's see what the Most High said. All right, let's go to 1 Samuel 15 and 2, start with verse 2. 1 Samuel 15 and 2. Thus said the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Elimelech did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. First, Elimelech is the so-called Jewish people today, all right? But their biblical nationality is Elimelech, all right? They still an Edomite, all right? 1 Samuel 15:3. Now go, Slucky, now go and smite Elimelech and utterly destroy all that they have and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Verse 4. And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telam 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judah. Meaning the Lord sent 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men to kill them Edomites. And why didn't the Lord say anything about you shouldn't abhor an Edomite, like he said in Deuteronomy 23:7 chapter? Because to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose up under heaven. And the Lord and the Most High isn't saying to go break their windows out of their cars, houses, slam the doors in their face, etc. And you can do that or hang them and leave them there, and that is an abominable act, and you can go spit in their face, okay? But you can hate an Edomite for the wickedness and the sins that they do, right? So you can't hate an Edomite, all right? You just can't go slam their doors, can't spit in their face and all that, right? But you can hate them for the things that they do, all right? All right, so precept must be on precept. And Christian, they read that verse, you know what I mean? Should not harbor an Edomite, you know what I mean? They don't go precept on precept, okay? All right, Isaiah, you know, right, 28:10, okay? Right. Let's go back to Deuteronomy. Let's go Deuteronomy 28. Deuteronomy 23:8. Deuteronomy 23:8. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of the Lord in their third generation. Meaning in the third generation, and at first they couldn't come in, and they were outcasts, and they accepted that they were going to be slaves to the Israelite. Now they can come in and be Israelite slave and servants, and don't make a Edomite a chief right hand man, because King Saul went off, right? Let's go to 1 Samuel 21:7, okay? Because Saul went off, man. He made Dougie, all right, the chief of the herd over his brother, okay? Let's go to 1 Samuel 21:7. Now a certain man of the servant of Saul was there that day, detained before the Lord, and his name was Dougie, Slacky, and Edomite, the chiefest of the herd men that belonged to Saul, right? Meaning Saul went off because he made this Edomite Dougie chiefest of the herdmen instead of his fellow Benjamite Israelite brother. And don't make the Edomite chief of anything, and don't give them no power. And them Edomite Dougie supposed to be slaves and working in the field and under the dominion under the Israelites. And Saul had an evil spirit just like Dougie had one, and Saul was seeking counsel from Dougie every time he wanted to know something, right? So Saul was going off, man. Saul was going off. Saul had an evil spirit on him, okay? Right. Let's go to Deuteronomy, back to Deuteronomy 23:9. Deuteronomy 23:9. When the host go forth against thy enemy, then keep thee from every wicked thing, meaning like idols, Babylonian garments, wedges of gold, right? Verse 10, if there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that chanced him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp, meaning if a man having a wet dream at night, nocturnal emission, meaning an involuntary injection slacky of semen during sleep, and you have to leave the camp because you are unclean, and you will defile the camp and making everyone else unclean, okay? Right. Let's go to verse 11. But it shall be when evening come on, he shall wash himself with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp again. Verse 12. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whether thou shalt go forth abroad, meaning don't use the restroom among everyone when you come out of your tent, and you have to have order. And the Lord said you have to have a destination place to go forth and use the restroom outside the congregation. Right. Verse 13. And thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon, and it shall be when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back and cover that which come from thee. Verse 14. For the Lord thy Yahweh walked it in the midst of thy camp, to deliver thee and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camps like it be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. Meaning, so we have to have camp rules and keep the camp holy. And you take a paddle / shovel to dig a hole, and when you have to use the restroom, and when you done, you cover the hole back up. And also the Lord walk among the camp. You don't want to have feces all over the camp and urine everywhere, and it is stinking up the camp. The Lord isn't dealing with that, and you have to make sure your temple and your camp is holy, and you are holy, and keep your vessel holy, and the Lord dwell among you. Right. All right, let's go to Deuteronomy 15. All right. Thou shalt not deliver unto his master the servant which is escaped from his master unto thee. Meaning, there is no reason a servant should run away from his master. And if he did run away, it was proper cause, and it could be from getting tortured, beaten, and you might be putting him in that same position that he escaped it from. Let's go to Sirach 32 and 29. Let's go to Sirach 32 and 29. But be not excessive towards any, and without discretion do nothing. Verse 30. If thou have a servant, let him be unto thee as thyself, because thou hast bought him with a price. 31. If thou have a servant, so let me read that again. If thou have a servant, entreat him as a brother, for thou hast need of him as of thy own soul. If thou entreat him evil, and he run from thee, which was with will, read that again. If thou have a servant, entreat him as a brother, for thou hast need of him as of thy own soul. If thou entreat him evil, and he run from thee, which way wilt thou go to seek him? Meaning, so the Lord said, if you have a servant and you have to treat him as a brother, and these are Israelites that work for you, and don't be excessive towards your servant and give him more work than he can handle, like changing his wages, beating him up, keeping him away from food, and that's why he escaped from his master. And you can't treat them like that. Treat them like that, right? Let's go back to Deuteronomy 23 verse 16. Deuteronomy 23:16. He shall dwell with thee, even among you, in that place which he shall choose, in one of thy gates, where it like him best, that thou shalt not oppress him. Verse 17. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel. Verse 18. Thou shalt not bring the hair of a whore, or the price of a dog into the house of the Lord thy God for any vow, for even both these are abomination unto the Lord thy God. Meaning you want to make a vow, but you have dirty money, and all money isn't good money unto the Lord. Blood money, dirty money, stripper money, and the Lord isn't hearing that you are paying your vows with that money. Let's go to Isaiah 23:17, okay? Isaiah 23:17. And it shall come to pass after the end of 70 years, that the Lord will visit Tyre, and she shall turn to her hire, and shall commit fornication with all the kingdoms of the world upon the face of the earth. Meaning Tyre is spiritually the Babylon we live in, and you have an actual city called Tyre in the ancient world. As you have heard of the Tyre Canaan, a Sidon city northeast of Israel, and now the Lord have a spiritual Tyre, and he said this kingdom will commit fornication with every kingdom on the earth to her hire, and for a whore and a prostitute they are going to get a reward for committing fornication with the other nations. So this is a hire for a prostitute. Verse 18. And her merchandise in her heart shall be holiness to the Lord. It shall not be treasured, nor laid up, for her merchandise shall be for them that dwell before the Lord, to eat sufficiently, and for durable clothing. Meaning, and we read in the law that her heart of a whore can't be holy. So why is Babylon the great merchandise heart will sanctify for the Lord, and it's not going directly to the Most High? And the merchandise of Babylon the great is everything you see around you, the buildings, food, clothes, stores, and this all the wealth of Babylon the great that they got from committing fornication with the other nation. And in the last days, before all hell break loose, the merchandise for her isn't going to be the temple of the Most High. It is coming to Israel to have, for we can survive on the resource that Babylon has. And brothers going to be in their mansions in the last days, and everything is going to be sanctified for Israel just to survive. But in the ancient world, you brought that dirty money in the temple, and the Lord wouldn't accept it. But the Lord is going to somewhat accept it in the last days, and that's how the Israelites are going to survive. All right, so let's go back to Deuteronomy 23 and verse 19. 23:19. Deuteronomy 23:19. Thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victual, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. Verse 20. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that the Lord thy Yahweh may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to in the land whither thou goest to possess it. Usury mean interest, and Esau had 10% interest in hidden fees, and every time you get a loan, it's interest. And the Lord saying we can put interest on a stranger, but not our brothers. Right. Let's go to Psalms 15 and verse 4. Psalms 15 and 4. In whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honored them that feared the Lord. He that sweareth it to his own hurt and changed it not. Verse 5. He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taking reward against the innocent, he that doeth these things shall never be moved. Meaning, so you are not putting out your money for usury. And if I give someone $10 and I don't expect $50 back, I will not be moved for not charging any interest to my brother. And the Lord is looking at that, and that is honest and pure. And I won't give you a loaf of bread and to expect a whole lamb back, and that's off and unjust balance. That's the Lord will destroy people for unjust balance. Right. Let's go back to 23 and 21. When thou shalt vow a vow unto the Lord thy Yahweh, thou shalt not slack to pay it, for the Lord thy Yahweh will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. It's like if it would be sin in thee. For example, if the Lord allowed me to beat the Philistine, and I would get the Lord 10,000 lambs upon the altar, and if you promise the Lord 10,000 lambs, and you offer only 100 lambs, and you say, I will get to it when I can, and the Lord is going to destroy you, and you can play the Lord, and the Lord is not dealing with that, and if you make a vow to the Lord, and you have to come through with it, and that is a promise spirit, and that is why the Israelites don't deal with that promise spirit that I promise, and that's why the Lord say, let your yea be yea and nay be nay, because you are not going to know what's going to happen, so you never say promise. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 5 and 1. Ecclesiastes 5 and 1. Ecclesiastes 5 and 1. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of Yahweh, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of food, for they consider not that they do evil. Meaning, and the brothers walking in the temple saying, yeah, Lord, it is me again, and saying, I promise you, help me get this money, for I can drive to the next town to get this loaf of bread. And brothers are making a lot of vows of promise to the Lord, and not knowing he is jamming himself up, instead of be more ready to hear than to speak the sacrifice of food, and saying, Lord, I promise if you help me this time, and I will give you my word. Verse 2. Be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thy heart be hasty to utter anything before Yahweh, for Yahweh is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore let thy words be few. Verse 4. When thou vowest a vow unto Yahweh, defer not to pay it, for he had no pleasure in fools. Pay that with which thou hast vowed. Meaning the Most High is saying, if I did it for you, then you have to pay up and do it for me. If I deliver the Philistines to you, and now it's time for Jace to pay up his vow. Verse 5. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow than that thou shouldest vow and pay not. Meaning the Lord is saying it is best you don't make that vow to him and make that promise, and it might be something inhibited from you to keeping it, and it is many types of vow in the scriptures as well. Let's go to Proverbs 10 and 17. Proverbs 10 and 17. He is in the way of life that keep instruction, but he that refused it, reproof erred it. Like verse 18. He that hideth a hatred with lying lips, and he that uttered it a slander is a fool. Verse 19. In the multitude of words there wanted not sin, but he that refrained his lips is wise. Verse 20. The tongue of the just is as choice silver. The heart of the wicked is little worth. Meaning, if you keep talking, and eventually silver is going to come out of your mouth, and a wise man keep his words few, and you won't see a wise man running his lips and being clamorous, and a wise man is going to say yes or no and speak when needed. Verse 21. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for want of wisdom. Meaning, the lips of the righteous are going to speak the things that profited and nourishable to the doctrine of life to get to the kingdom of heaven. And a fool is always talking about how they saw what went on at a basketball game and coming out of their lips, and that is the lips of a fool. Let's go with 2 Peter 3:11. 2 Peter 3:11. Seeing then, it's like he's saying then that all these things shall be dissolved. It's like, what manner of person ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, godliness. It's like, meaning, so your lips should always be occupied in the scripture and talking about salvation, talking about prophecy to your people, and talking about bettering yourself. And these are the wise men of this time are going to do, right? Let's go to Psalm 66:12. Psalm 66:12. Okay, the Psalm 66:12. Thou hast caused the men to ride over our heads. Read that again. Thou hast caused the men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but thou broughtest us out into a wealthy place. Meaning, that Jake went through hell and back. Verse 13. I will go into thy house with the burnt offering. I will pay thee my vow. Verse 14. Which 14, which my lips have uttered it, and my mouth has spoken when I was in trouble. Meaning, when you were in trouble, the Lord delivered you from A, B, and C, and you had to give the Lord burnt offerings in the ancient days, and to pay him back. And buying 1,000 of lambs isn't cheap to buy to give a burnt offering to the Lord. So when you make a vow with the Lord to save you, or ask him what you need, and you have to pay a vow to the Lord, and you have to deal with it. Let's go to Judges 11:39. Okay. Judges 11:39. And it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned it unto her fathers, who did with her according to his vow which he had vowed it, and she knew no man, and it was a custom in Israel. Meaning, she went out 2 months to hold her virginity, because in the ancient world it was important to get married. So she held her virginity, knowing she was never going to get married and bear children. And after that, her father offered it her upon the altar. All right, verse 40. That the daughter of Israel went yearly to lament the daughters of Jephthah the Gileadite, it's like 4 days in a year. Meaning, so back in the ancient world, the Israelite woman 4 days out of the year, and it don't speak about the months, but 4 days out of the year, grief and sorrow. Why? And she could have bucked it up to her father and ran away, but she went 2 months, and that was a reminder to pay back to get offered up to the Most High God, to fulfill the vow that her father made to the Most High God, for her father wouldn't be destroyed by the Lord. And that is a heavy thing that the daughter of Israel did back then in the ancient world. Let's go to Deuteronomy 32 and verse 7. Right, because this should be a custom to Israel. All right. It's Deuteronomy 32 and 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will shew thee thy elders, and they will tell thee. Meaning, so this should be a custom to the Israelite women, and she should be well and mourned for her virginity, and it's nothing new up under the sun. So the daughters of Israel, and we should be doing the righteous acts of our forefathers and our foremothers did in the ancient days, fasting and praying. Right. Let's go back to Deuteronomy. All right, 23 and 23. All right. Okay. It's Deuteronomy 23 and 23. That which is gone out of thy lips, thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed it unto the Lord thy God, which thou hast promised with thy mouth. Verse 24, when thou comest into thy neighbor's vineyard, then thou mayest eat grapes of thy field, slacky at thy own pleasure, but thou shalt not put any in thy vessel. Meaning you can only eat the grapes right there. And don't pick your neighbor's grapes and fill the bucket up and take it home, and you can only eat what you pick there. Right. Verse 25, when thou and when thou comest into the standing corn of thy neighbors, then thou mayest pluck the ears of with thy hand, but thou shalt not move a sickle unto thy neighbor's standing corn. Meaning, don't take your sickle / tool and start cutting it down and take everything from your neighbors and go in your neighbor's field and eat what you want to eat. And if I was hungry and come across my neighbor's field with corn, and I have to eat the corn there and not stock up my buckets, and take all of his corn home, I can only eat what I pick right there, and I can't take a bucket or a bag or put them in my bucket, put them in my bucket or pocket or car and stock up and keep going in there and take all of their food, and I might get jammed up like that. Right. Even Yahushua kept the law and did eat of the corn that they plucked at the ears, and they was eaten on a Sabbath day, and they didn't take any corn home with them. Right. So, even Yahushua kept that law. That's Matthew 12 and 1. Right. They went in the field, ate the corn. They put nothing in their bag. They ate what they ate, got filled, and came out of there. And that's why we got to practice righteous act. If a brother in his truth, okay, if this brother in his truth, say for example, he got a garden, okay, all right, yeah, I say he got he got a watermelon. Okay, boom, I open up that watermelon, eat what I can right there. I don't take them watermelons. All right, I'm gonna take some home for later on. In case I get home. No, I can't do that. I gotta eat what I can right there. Okay. Right. But anyway, this is the laws in Deuteronomy 23 chapter. Okay. Right. So I want to give honor and glory to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Shalom.